two, one.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you. As you probably know by now, I'm Jim Gordon, and I'm the founder and executive director of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And we've been doing these webinars now for about 7 months. And Brian and Lauren have been working behind the scenes to make sure it all happens. So we're glad to be with you in this time of intense turmoil, distress, hopes, fears, and disturbance. And we'll be coming back and talking about what's happening now, and I'll be responding to a number of questions that have come up about how to deal with the consequences and how to deal with the reality of what's unfolding outside and within us. But first, let's sit with each other and let's breathe deeply and relax into this moment. I don't know about you, but I have been working with a training program that we have and issues that have come up and organizational complexities and ways to get the word out about all kinds of meetings, all kinds of things going on. So sitting here and relaxing for a couple of minutes and breathing slowly and deeply is really important to me, important to bring me into balance and to bring me right here sitting in my chair with you. So please join me and allow your breathing to deepen. If you feel comfortable, let your eyes close. Remember, that's a way to eliminate much external stimulation. Makes it easier to relax and be present. Breathing deeply in through the nose, out through the mouth, with your belly soft and relaxed. Perhaps saying soft as you breathe in and belly as you breathe out. And relaxing a little more with each exhalation. If thoughts come, let them come, notice them, let them go. Gently bring your mind back to soft belly. Okay. Open your eyes, let your attention come back in the room. I, obviously, I don't know what it was like for those of you who are watching me, but for me, this soft belly breathing, doing it now, doing it really several times a day during these last weeks has been so important. So important as a way of helping me stay in balance, helping me recognize that what's happening all around me, being bombarded with conflict and information and worries and concerns and challenges and regression, that it too comes and it goes. And my job is to relax with it, to be present, to deal with what I need to deal with, and to let the rest of it go. And it's a continuous challenge. It's also a continuous invitation to move into that meditative state. In fact, to use agitation and distress and uncertainty as signals to me to come into that state. And in that state of relaxation and balance that I hope you're feeling at least a bit of right now, after those few minutes of soft belly breathing, it's so much easier for me to do everything that I have to do, including being here with you and speaking to you. And I think if you do this, and this is relating to the questions that are here, if you were willing to practice this soft belly breathing, it will make things easier. A few minutes, a few times a day, and that brings us into a meditative mind and reminds us that even when we're not deliberately doing soft belly breathing, our bodies are more likely to be moving into that state of relaxation, breathing a little bit more slowly, a little slower to react, and a little bit more patient and aware and ready to respond rather than just react. Other thing that I've noticed that I've been doing is looking more at spiritual texts, different traditions at different moments that seem particularly interesting to me, and helping me to understand, first of all, that times of turmoil are not just contemporary. This is the nature of being human, being in a world of conflict and dissension and concern and agitation. This seems to be part of the condition that we're in, and coming in touch with what's inside us, with what's abiding inside us, what lasts beyond the turmoil, the confusion, the aggravation, the aggression, the disagreement, that if we can come in touch with that within us, which is somehow in ways that I don't pretend to understand, but I've sometimes experienced, in connection with the larger whole of which we are but this tiny little part. If I can experience that, that helps me move through this time. One person I just started reading again is Ramana Maharshi. He's a was an Indian sage who left his body in 1950. And I just came across a book. And one of the things I recommend, people often say, well, how do you decide what to read and what to do and who to look at and where to go for guidance? I kind of let I kind of let my intuition or my imagination and to some degree serendipity, that is circumstances, or what Carl Jung called synchronicity, guide me. And let me explain what I mean by that. I was sort of looking around and sort of wondering, I want to read something, and I need something that will put me in touch with what's eternal in being human, and maybe what's eternal in the whole cosmos. And that thought was in my mind, and all of a sudden I saw a book that I hadn't looked at in years, and it was dialogues with Ramana Maharshi, who spent a great part of his life simply being silent. And these are beautiful to me. may not be right for you, but it's beautiful for me. It's just what I needed to read at the moment. And what I needed to read and what I needed to see is his reminding me that there is something imperishable beyond this life. Now, I don't ordinarily think about that. I don't know if I, quote, believe it, but somehow his voice and the authority of somebody who spent many years sort of sitting in silence and asking himself the question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And detaching himself from everything that wasn't essential. It's not exactly the direction I'm headed in, but somehow the wisdom coming from that place has been helpful to me these last couple of days, just in relaxing and sitting through everything that's going on and knowing when to turn on the television and look at the returns and turn off the television or look at something else. So I suggest you just, this is a time to open, for all of us, I think, to open ourselves to those possibilities. And for me, it's had to do with looking to the words of spiritual teachers, different traditions, different times in history, just whatever seems appropriate for me. Reading the prayer of St. Francis, for example, or looking at, I think it's a 10th century Sufi Islamic text, the Conference of the Birds, those, or looking at the I Ching, Chinese Taoist Book of Changes, all of those over the last week or two have been very, very important to me during this time of tumult to help bring me into balance. So this would be a suggestion before I move into the questions. Open yourself to whatever seems like it might be inspiring to you. And if something happens to fall off the shelf at your feet, see what it is, look at the title, open the book, check it out, and see if maybe that might be helpful to you. So synchronicity is a word that Jung popularized. I'm not sure if he coined it or not, but what it means is an acausal connection between things that are happening at the same time. So I'm talking with you at this moment, and if you happen to be looking at a bird when I'm talking about the spiritual, uh, and there's a connection for you between the bird and my discussion about the spiritual, and you see the bird as a symbol of the spiritual, that's synchronicity. I didn't make it happen. The bird didn't make me happen, and you didn't make either one happen, but they're happening at the same time in your life, and kind of something to pay attention to. See if there's anything there that may be instructive for you. Same thing with the books you come across or the music that you listen to. I the other day I was looking at one of Scorsese. I've been watching Scorsese's documentaries about musicians, which really I think they're really quite wonderful. And I happened to be looking at one of Bob Dylan's Rolling Thunder, the Rolling Thunder tour, the Rolling Thunder Review, I think 1975, 1976. I just looked at it, and there playing the violin with Bob was a friend of mine, Scarlett Rivera, and she was playing this song called "Oh Sister," and I was just so moved by it, and I found myself weeping, and I found myself just appreciating my connection with the sisters in my life, the women throughout my life, and that feminine energy. The song is a kind of plea and a lament, but for me, it was really a kind of celebration of that connection to Scarlett, to my friend Scarlett, who used to come to our cancer conferences at the Center for Mind Body Medicine and play music, and a connection to my sense, the women and girls in my life, and also a connection to the feminine in myself. And it just happened to be watching it on television, and I was paying attention to it. So I think this is a time when we need to be opening ourselves to instruction and influences that may come into our lives from many different sources. Okay, let me respond to some of these questions that are arising out of this time of turmoil and tension and dissension. First question. Even if Biden wins, I'm feeling very apprehensive about the next few weeks and the transfer of power in January. How can I stay calm and centered enough to focus on my job and many other responsibilities during this time? So I would say this is a really interesting question. So all the techniques that I've been sharing with you over these last 7 months are ways to stay calm and centered. And soft belly breathing, fundamental, easy to do, doesn't take a great deal of time. Repeat as often as needed. So that's bringing us into balance and helping with the focus. But I want to take this question the other way around. I'm saying that focusing on your job and your other responsibilities will help to keep you in balance. Just before I got on this webinar, I was talking with Brian, and Brian was telling me about his mother, who's living in a retirement community in Arizona. And she's very distressed because there's so much dissension between people or among people in the community. Some people are staunch Trump supporters, some are staunch Biden supporters, and the ideas they have about each other tend to be, very polarized. There was a woman who was convinced who was talking with Brian's mother, who was convinced that Joe Biden is a pedophile. And I know these are stories that are circulating on QAnon and other parts of the sort of the far right media sphere. And of course, it's a kind of madness, and it's reminiscent of what circulates in times of great trouble and turmoil. This kind of thinking is, of course, well, not of course, you may not know this, is what gave rise to massacres of Jews, because there was thinking during difficult times of trouble, whether it's plague time or economically difficult times in Europe over the centuries, something's going wrong. It must be the fault of the Jews. And it's those Jews who are killing Christian babies and drinking their blood and putting their blood on the matzahs that they serve on Passover. This is QAnon 700 years ago, and it resulted in people being killed. So it's very disturbing to see this kind of information. And this is out there. And Brian's mother was wondering, well, how do I deal with this? This is somebody I live with. This is somebody, we've had some nice interactions over the months or years, and what to do about this, and how can I relate to somebody who believes something like this? Well, Brian told me this, and then we were talking about what his mother was doing, and what she's decided to do is to bring the people in this community together on a food drive, and to bring food together, to go to supermarkets and restaurants and gather surplus food, and buy some food and distribute it to homeless people and distribute it to people who don't have enough to eat. And there are plenty of them all over the United States. And I said, that's what she needs to do. That is that work. Having a common task where people who disagree with each other, even profoundly, can come together and work together. And on top of that, do something useful for other people. That's brilliant. That is the beginning of a process of healing. Similarly, so I said to Brian, please tell your mother congratulations, and I'm looking forward to hearing what happens. The other thing that I'm noticing, as we're in the middle of doing a training program right now, we've been doing training programs these last 3 months at the Center for Mind-Body Medicine, hundreds of people coming through the training program and dozens of our faculty and staff involved in the trainings. And what people say is, this training is keeping me sane. And it's not just what we're teaching in the training, but it's coming together. It is serving other people, doing something for us, doing something useful for the trainees who are coming, the doctors, the mental health professionals, the teachers, the community organizers, the leaders in the communities, the clergy who are in the trainings. And for the people in the trainings, it's coming and learning things, learning a way of being that can help themselves that they can then share with others. So, yes, soft belly breathing, relaxing into the moment, and also, yes, using the work that you're doing as a way of staying centered. In India, they call it karma yoga. It is a kind of yoga. That's the yoga of work, the yoga of labor, of acting in the world. So it works both ways. We bring meditation into action, and action can become meditative. And the work that we do, we need to make that our meditation. So whatever we're doing, bring some mindfulness into it, appreciate it as this is our path, and understand that this is a way also of coming into balance in a very powerful way. Okay, next question. Right now, I fear for the younger generations who are lacking the vital social connections with their friends and a sense of spontaneity in their lives. What can we do to support them and help them retain a sense of hope? Well, um, it is a tough situation for many younger people. The separation, adolescence, especially, is a time when people come together. That's the nature of being a teenager, an adolescent, is that one comes together with one's group. One finds in the connections with the group, as well as in the connection with the larger society, a sense of what Erik Erikson and others have called identity. This is how we know who we are. We're part of a group, and we defining ourselves by our friends and by the beliefs we share and the practices we have and what we do for learning and fun and recreation and to earn a living, what we do with our friends at this age, and it's crucially important. So I think the first thing is for younger people to pay attention to the possibilities for connection that are still there. So many of the younger people whom I know, whom I work with, they're reaching out to family much more. They're reaching out to friends, uh, as they have to online or by FaceTime, by telephone. So pay attention to that. And I understand the absence of intimate connection for so many young people, and make use of the connection that is possible, and do reach out, do see what's possible. Um, spontaneity. Spontaneity can be there anywhere. It's I think this is where tuning into what's happening inside us, tuning into all those emotions we are. It's only when we stop ourselves that we're not spontaneous. Let me see if I can find a way to say that. The problem is that we try to keep things fixed, and we do that out of fear. I can't be spontaneous. I have to protect myself. I have to be careful. I'm preoccupied with what's going to happen or what's not happening. Got to drop all that. Spontaneity comes from the mind being open, from the cup being empty, from that old Zen story, from being available to the moment. That's what meditation is about. It's about moment to moment awareness and acting in response to that moment. So I would encourage young people, and I'm very glad for the question, because I want to encourage all the younger people and people of any age with whom I'm in contact, pay attention to what's coming up. So, for example, if you feel like moving your body, I feel like moving my body right now. So I'm going to, you may not be able to see much except my midsection. I'm standing up and I'm moving my body a little. I'm paying attention. Oh, and I'll be back right now. I'll sit down with you again. But moving my body, that's spontaneous. I didn't go outside. Nobody came over. Didn't have a drink. I just paid attention to what's going on. So pay attention to what's happening. Whatever it is that you need to do, you have some time. Most young people now have some time on your hands. Pay attention. What are you being called to do? What needs to happen? And maybe you'll open yourself to different that is spontaneous. Maybe, who knows what it is? I don't know. For me, I'm watching, I was telling some of our team, I'm watching movies about kids who are chess prodigies. I realize this is the third one. I think it's called Queen's Gambit. It's on Netflix. It's the third one I've seen. It's interesting to me. It's bringing me back to be playing chess as a kid, and it's bringing up all kinds of things, and I'm responding spontaneously. When I first saw that that was up there, I said, oh, I don't know that I'm going to watch that. But then it just came to me, watch it. So I'm watching it, and I'm finding it very interesting, very moving, and bringing up all kinds of things from my own life, all kinds of things about loneliness. Because the girl and young woman who's the great chess prodigy in this particular one, she was very lonely. She was orphaned as a kid, and it brought up some my understanding my own loneliness and mourning and feeling it. But that came out of being spontaneous enough to pay attention. So pay attention to what's happening and respond. What's happening inside you, what's happening around you. As far as supporting young people, I think that we can do that, younger people. Is just hang out with them, be with them, encourage them to tell you what's going on. I remember one time, my son, I was, for whatever reason, I was telling him about things that I was doing. And he commented, he said actually to his mother, who then told me, he said, Dad's talking about himself. He's not asking me questions. I thought, he's right. Let me ask him. And so I started shifting totally. Because when he's interested in what I have to say about what's going on in my life, he'll tell me. But yeah, let me just that's not what he's interested in right now. So let me ask him about him. And it helped so much, helped our relationship. And he was able to talk much more about me. And then at the end of some of the conversation, he said, "And how are you doing, Dad?" So it's a question of finding out, reaching out, and seeing what they want to talk about, what they're interested in. The other thing is that I can communicate, and maybe many of us can, a sense of hope, because we have been through, some of us who are older, we have been through difficult times ourselves, times of confusion, uncertainty. Many of us, I was on a call the other day with leaders of our programs all over the world, and I realized everybody who's on this call has been through a hellacious situation. They've been in the middle of wars. They've been in the middle of genocides. They've been in the middle of trauma that's gone on for years, if not decades. They have a capacity to understand what we're going through now. And because I've spent some time in those situations, and I've spent time in my own difficult times, I have hope, because I know that it's possible to move through these times. And I'm not preaching to anybody, but I understand that this sense of hope is alive in me. So if you want to help other people, younger people, get in touch with the possibilities, get in touch with them in yourself and understand at a deep level that you've been through stuff, whatever it is, loss of a parent, divorce, total confusion, a time of great uncertainty, oppression in this country as well as elsewhere, and pay attention to the hope that survives, and bring that hope, not in a sermonizing way, but bring that hope in your own being to your connections with younger people. Okay. Question. Let me have. I'm drinking coffee during this time. I was talking to Isela on our staff earlier. We were talking about coffee. She's saying, I don't think coffee is really good for me. I just want to. Comes up from the talk I gave on the trauma healing diet. For some of us, coffee is great. Coffee helps energize us and keep us focused. Others of us become somewhat anxious from coffee. It's our metabolism. It has nothing to do with character or anything else. So if coffee or tea are good for you, enjoy it. If they're not, let them go. Not for you. Anyway, I'm going to have a sip. What have I found to be the most helpful form of meditation during these past few weeks of political uncertainty and unrest? And I would say, in addition to the soft belly breathing and the shaking and dancing that I do regularly, and the yoga and the Tai Chi, I do yoga every day, yoga postures. There's basic stretches. I've been doing it for a long time, but I'm not an adept. But I do stretches now. I do Tai Chi when I feel like it. I found that very helpful. I'm going through a lot of time on the screen, especially when it's daylight. I can go out. Fortunate enough to have a porch. I go out on the porch. I do my Tai Chi. It brings me into balance, makes me calmer, and energizes me. In addition, the two others that I'm doing during this time are yelling and screaming and shouting and sometimes pounding pillows. It came to me the other day. It came to me in a body scan. I think we've done the body scan here. I have to check through. If we haven't done it, Brian and Lauren, we'll have to do a body scan one of these weeks. So I sort of went inside myself, and it's up on our website. There's a video, I think, of me doing the body scan, and it's there in my book, in the Transformation, Discovering Wholeness and Healing After Trauma. And you can read it and you can go through it and you can do it yourself. So I went to a part of my body, which happened to be my butt, which was crying out to me. I said, "What's going on here?" And the message I got was, you got some tightness. There are certain stretches you should do. I said, "Is that all?" And they said, No. The message I got from this internal dialogue is, look behind you. And I said, "Look for enemies?" And I said, "No, well, look at what you're not looking at." It's like a metaphor. My butt is behind me. Look behind me. Look at what you're not looking at. And what I was not looking at was the anger that was there inside me. And I said, "Okay, what do I do?" And my butt said to me, "Get it out, buddy. Get out the anger." So every day in the morning, at least for a minute or so, I'm yelling and screaming. Maybe you want to do it with me now. Yeah! Just like that. I hope you're doing it with me. And I do it. I get out that frustration, all that frustration from watching the television and people screaming at each other and people, wanting to hurt each other. And I'm getting out my own frustration, my own anger. So I recommend it highly. And if it's built up a lot in your body, you can get on your knees. I have a yoga mat. I kneel down on the yoga mat. I have some pillows in front of me, not the pillows that I'm sleeping on, but other pillows that I have around. I put them down and I bring my forearms down on the pillows for 2, 3, 5 minutes. And I yell and I scream and I get it out of my body. 5 minutes. Do this for 5 minutes in the morning. See what happens. So many people are frustrated. Almost every call that I'm on, people are saying how frustrated and how angry I am. So in order to do something in the world that sort of mobilizes the anger in a constructive way, I need to not be holding it inside. I need to not be feeling, shut down and resentful and I need to get it out. And then I can act. I can channel, or as the Freudian word, sublimate that anger and move it into action, productive social action, work with other people. So that's a good one to use. The other one is laughter. We've done laughter meditation, just standing up for a minute and going, ha, 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 and continuing. I'm sitting and I'm laughing. So I invite you to do this. Very simple. Your whole body, bring your whole body into it. Again, it breaks up fixed physical patterns that we're into, helps short circuit rumination, the constant going over in my mind. What's going to happen in Georgia? What's happening in Pennsylvania? What about Nevada? How many of you, I can't see you, but I would bet a third or a half or maybe more of the people who are on here with me are having difficulty sleeping at night or waking up in the middle of the night. A couple people have said to me, I wake up in the middle of the night and I turn on the television and I look to see what's happening. Well, if we can laugh at ourselves a little bit during this time, I'm not saying this is not in many ways a very serious, very threatening time. Of course it is, but becoming obsessed and ruminating about it constantly doesn't help. So if we can laugh and free ourselves from the rumination so we can think more clearly, have a clearer, more open mind, so we can use our intuition and our imagination and open our heart, we'll find it's so much easier to respond effectively to the challenges. So all of those, all of the meditations we've been doing, plus the pounding pillows, plus the laughter, I find very helpful. And this relates to question 4. I found myself getting very agitated with my family members recently. How can I make sure to become aware when I am being unreasonable and bring myself into the present moment with gratitude? That sounds like a great idea. And again, so many people we're finding ourselves irritable with those to whom we're closest. So the first thing, and the questioner obviously has done that, I found myself getting agitated. So the first thing is become aware when you are getting agitated and stop for a moment and breathe deeply. Second thing is, if you suspect that this is going on, just ask, you know, is the what do you how is the way I'm acting right now? Is it okay? Am I opening doors with you? Do you feel I'm here with you and I'm responsive and connected, or do you feel I'm putting you off and pissing you off? What's happening between us? If you don't know, ask the other person. And if you do know, say, I'm sorry. Very simple. Say, I didn't mean to be doing this, but I'm just in this agitated state, and I'm sorry. I'll do my best not to do it. So it's, I think the answer, in a sense, is there in the question: is become aware. Become aware of when you're more interested in making a point than in connecting with the person. It's being right is not the greatest thing in the world. We think it. I was certainly brought up to think it's crucially important. You got to be right. You got to win the argument, and if you don't, there's something wrong. And it's not that if you're not right, and if you haven't shown the other person you're right, you haven't really dealt with the situation. No, being right's not the most important thing, and especially in those to whom we're close or those to whom we want to be close. The important thing is to be connected, to be open, to be compassionate, to try to come to some kind of mutual understanding. Being right is, I think Werner Erhard, whom I used to know back in the day, I think he's the one who first said it's the booby prize. Well, he's right. He's right about that. It is the booby prize. The prize is being happy, being connected with people. The other thing is listen. Shut up and listen. One of the things we say in our mind-body skills groups, at least that I say, one of the injunctions that we give right from the beginning is you're not here to convince anybody in this group. You're not here to fix anybody. You're here to make the discoveries about yourself that you need to. You're here to learn how to help and heal yourself, and eventually to be of service to others. But the beginning is to be here for yourself, to look at what's going on. And when you're in a group with other people, or when you're in a relationship with other people, the most important thing isn't proving you're right. The most important thing is connecting and understanding where they're coming from, and encouraging them to understand where you're coming from without there being winners and losers. And again, I'm sort of, I guess, thinking of titles. I think it's Roger Fisher, who was a professor at Harvard Law School. I think the book he wrote, I don't remember who he wrote it with, somebody else, it was Getting to Yes. And it's not just about so much about agreeing. We're not talking about mediating conflict. We're talking about the yes of who am I? Yes to myself. Yes to you. Being present with each other and having that be the fundamental part of our relationship, being with each other, appreciating each other, learning to listen, to be present with each other, to have compassion for each other and for ourselves. So I hope that's helpful. How do I resist the lack of boundaries during COVID from my loved ones personally? I'm feeling very angry. I don't understand. Oh, resist taking the lack of boundaries. I don't understand what that means, actually. Um, what does it mean, taking the lack of boundaries? Oh, personally, taking the lack of I got it. I got it. Taking the lack of boundaries personally during COVID. From yeah, lack of boundaries. I got it. The syntax was confusing me, but um, there. I think what the questioner is meaning is how do I take the distance between us? How do I not take it personally? Well, there's no reason to take it personally. Why take it personally? They're protecting themselves. They're protecting you. Um, I go over and see my dear friend Sharon. We were once married, long time ago, but we stayed very good friends. And I go see her, and she's very careful, and I'm careful with her. We don't see very many people at all. Maybe we see our goddaughter. Occasionally, somebody comes and visits me and sits on the porch, but we're very respectful. And I think what we need to do is have that respect and understand that this is love. That keeping away from each other when it's not safe to be with each other is love. I was talking with my son. My son is 18. He's playing football. He wants me to come watch him play the games. I want to come watch him play the games, but it's not really doesn't really make sense for me to have to get on a plane or drive 9 hours to go see him play. So I watch him in video, and I try to explain to him because I don't know if he was taking it personally or not, but I think he got it. He understands. He'd like for me to be there, and he's maybe at moments he's angry or upset that I'm not there, and I'm upset that I'm not there. But I have to be sane. I think we have to really put right now sanity and survival above those tendencies that we may have to take separation from others, not personally, to see it as an affront or an insult or a lack of caring. And I think we have to talk about it. And so I was very glad that he said to me, Dad, I wish you could come and that we could have that conversation. So I encourage you to have the conversation with the people from whom you're separated. And that conversation itself helps to overcome some of that separation. It's really so important. And feeling the separation is also important. This is brought up in me and in many, many people I know, the separation that from earlier in our lives, the loneliness. I'm thinking about myself as a lonely little boy, and I'm not really aware of that much of the time. And I've been more aware of it during this time. It's brought it up in me. And so I've had an opportunity while I was watching the movie, the Queen's Gambit, and she was a very lonely girl, and that loneliness allowed me to come in touch with my own loneliness and to cry for it, and then to feel better, to feel a sense of relief and connection to myself, and actually a greater ease in connecting with people in whatever way I can. So allow yourself to feel the anger, allow yourself to feel the grief, and then move through that and see what happens. For me, it's a sense of relief, it's a sense of easier connection. Just a couple more because we've been going on for a while. How can mind body medicine skills promote healing in descendants of Holocaust survivors who carry the epigenetics of that experience into second and third generations in this country? And this is a question from a previous talk. We're talking about historical trauma. An important question. I think the first thing is to become aware of historical trauma. We've been working with a lot of indigenous people here in the United States, and who are keenly aware of the historical trauma they have experienced. And so it's important to understand that this is transmitted socially. But it's also transmitted epigenetically. It's transmitted in the chromosomes, and in turn affecting the genes and making those of us who've experienced historical trauma, whether it's from genocide, whether it's from pogroms in Eastern Europe, whether it's from histories of discrimination, slavery, uh, all of those, we need to become aware. And so one of the tools that we use to become aware of historical trauma is the genogram, is the sort of the diagram of our family's history. And we can, and I think it's so valuable to become aware of the trauma that our ancestors experienced that may be affecting us. As we do that, and again, if you go look at the transformation, there's a whole chapter on the genogram, and my colleague Sabrina shared her genogram, and you'll see it. It's a particular genogram of a black woman from the South Bronx who happens to have become a Muslim, and it's very, very, very profoundly illuminating to look at her genogram and to use her genogram as an inspiration to look at your own genogram, to construct it, and to look at the sources of historical trauma, and then become aware of how it's affecting you now, how the way somebody is speaking to you, perhaps in a demeaning way or a way that feels demeaning. Why is that so devastating? It's unpleasant, of course, and it's not the way people should speak to each other. But if you can recognize that it evokes previous, not only demeaning comments and discrimination, but the death that's been dealt out to your ancestors or the threats of death, then you understand what's going on, why it causes so much difficulty. And then you can begin to deal with it. So begin to experience the anger. Maybe find a way to let out the anger and find a way to speak about what's happening right now. Or if it's bringing up a sense of isolation and abandonment, whole populations have been abandoned, have been shut off by the dominant group in a society and discriminated against them. Case of indigenous people in the United States, forced, not only have there been massacres, they've been forced into reservations, and becoming aware of that and aware of how it's playing out now, and then using the tools of mind body medicine to come into balance, and then to work with others to think through, okay, what do we do now? How do we deal with this situation? How do we deal not only with our internal distress, but how do we deal with this discrimination? How do we deal with what's happening now? How do we deal with the losses? How do we deal with, and the losses, of course, are being so painfully magnified during this time of COVID-19 in people who have experienced historical trauma, red, black, brown people, people who don't have much money, older people who've been isolated and separated. So using all the tools to bring ourselves into balance, and then coming together and sharing the experiences, and then seeing what we can do to deal with the material facts of our lives as well as the psychological realities. So those are some of the ways that we can deal with this. And this relates to the next question about white supremacy and racism. And is that carried in our genes as well? It's a good question. I don't know. Many of the people who are white supremacists are coming out of backgrounds of unacknowledged, considerable trauma. And if you talk with them, what you'll hear is the oppression that their ancestors went through. A sense of many of them, for example, those white people, they came over here fleeing persecution, or as indentured servants, or as prisoners in chain gangs. Now, that's not an excuse, but it's extremely helpful to get in touch with what's going on. I don't know about, nobody's ever looked at epigenetic changes. That'd be interesting to look at. But nobody's looked at those, but we don't need to wait to look at those. I think those of you who feel, there may be some watching who feel attracted to white supremacy, or who feel the racism that is so much a part of life in America, so tragically a part of our history. If you feel stirrings of that, as you recognize that in yourself, become aware of it. I think that's again the first thing. It's and try to understand some of where it may have come from, may be helpful to you. That sense of being persecuted and fearful of the other, which is so deep. And it's not all, this is not only a part of American race, US racism and white supremacy. This is a characteristic that is there in humanity. And Erik Erikson gave it the wonderful name of pseudo-speciation. That is, we think the other, whoever the other might be, is not human, is less than human, and we treat them that way. I think it's useful for those of us who have any inclination in that direction to begin to think about our own histories and how we feel we've been treated as less than human. And then, as we become aware of it, to consciously determine to break that cycle, to see where and how it's coming up. One of the uses of Donald Trump, and I've written about this, I've published a couple pieces in The Guardian and one in the San Francisco Chronicle about this, and gotten a huge amount of angry, if not hate mail because of it, hundreds and hundreds of people, is I've said his execrable behavior, his horrible behavior, his racism, his misogyny, his terrible, insulting, demeaning comments, and his destructive action, it's horrible. We have to deal with it. But also, we have to see what part of him is there inside of us. Not just condemn us, not just condemn him, excuse me, an interesting slip, not just condemn him, but look at whatever little part of him or big part of him is there in us and deal with it. Become aware of it. So when I look at him and how selfish, totally self-absorbed he is, he's a kind of caricature. And we give it fancy name like pathological narcissism. That's fine. But basically, he's totally self-absorbed, totally selfish. He only cares about himself. It's pretty clear from the way he behaves. Okay, understand that, combat it, but look in our own selves. Don't just look in that wonderful biblical phrase from the New Testament about not focusing on the beam, the log, it's sometimes translated, in the other person's eye. Look at the mote. Look at the speck in your own eye. Look at your own issues. Deal with your own issues. Hopefully, this particular president is going to be leaving in a few months, but we're still around. Let's look at our selfishness. Let's look at whatever trace of racism, or not trace, or greater amount of racism or misogyny or lack of attention to the next generation, to the environment, whatever mean-spiritedness and selfishness and fear, because he's such a fearful, insecure person, is there inside us. Let's look at ourselves. Let's deal with our own. That's something we have to learn from him. Okay. Is there a way to encourage the elected president next? Can I bring this up a little? To add a laureate for, what does it say, mental health and well-being? Well, I'm hoping to do that. I'm hoping we can do that, something like that. We need to have a nationwide, something equivalent to what Roosevelt did in the New Deal, kind of civilian conservation corps, some kind of national movement for healing the trauma that we've all experienced, for bringing us into balance, for enhancing our mental health. And I'm very interested in working with many of you, with people all over the country, to create this movement for healing our collective psychological, or individual and collective trauma, for coming back into balance, for bringing ourselves into a state of hopeful mental health and well-being. And I think what we can do is we can do our best to influence the current administration. So let people know. I'm at sometime in the next couple of weeks. We're going to come to a close in a moment. Tim Ryan, congressman from Ohio, who is I think will be very interested in this. He'll be on the webinar with me. He's somebody for who's been a supporter of our work, and we're working together for military mental health. And I want to talk with Tim about how we can bring this, whatever we're going to call it. My friend Forrest Whitaker calls it a trauma corps. Maybe he said, Jim, we have to organize a trauma corps. Well, maybe that's what it would call it. Maybe we'll call it Mehmet Oz, another friend, has a health corps. Maybe that's the right name. I don't know what the name for it yet is, but we have to come together and create this mass movement. And we're going to need support from President Biden and from the administration. And, I'm hoping that there will be people in the administration who will support it. And I encourage you to reach out, whoever wrote this question and everyone who's watching me, to reach out and say to your elected representatives, whatever connections you have to Biden-Harris campaign, this is something that we need to happen. I've been speaking with Vivek Murthy, who was the Surgeon General under President Obama, who wrote a wonderful book called Together about loneliness. I think Vivek will be interested in this as well. So I'm going to bring people together who are interested in this. I want to bring all of you who are interested in this. I want to encourage you to participate in our Center for Mind Body Medicine activities, to send me your ideas, and especially as well to reach out to people who are in the new administration, to reach out to your representatives and say, this is important. We need something. This is a laureate for mental health and well-being. Whatever, that's fine. Maybe this should be a new kind of Surgeon General or some kind of office as part of the Surgeon General's office. But the time has come to give this the visibility and the national authority, the presidential authority that it deserves, and to make it into not something that's simply a top-down initiative, but most important of all, to make it a movement that is really rising up from all of us who have been affected by this ongoing trauma, and all of us who want to bring greater mental health and well-being to our country. So let me stop here for the moment with you and just thank you very much for being with me and for the questions. And we'll just conclude with a minute or two of breathing together, bringing ourselves into a state of psychological well-being and enhancing our own mental health in these moments. So sitting and relaxing, breathing deeply, eyes closed to eliminate external stimulation. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth with our bellies soft and relaxed. Thoughts come, let them come, notice them, let them go. Gently bring your mind back to soft belly. Okay, open your eyes. Let your attention come back in the room. Oh, I find myself smiling with pleasure in being with you and with gratitude for your being with me and giving me this opportunity to explore not only your questions, but also to explore what's happening inside me, and for your help in helping me to discover new possibilities. And hopefully I'm helpful to you in the same way. So thank you again. Look forward to seeing you next week. Bye bye.